Hi, and welcome to Time Out Coaching with Tony Garbelotto. Today, I have one of the rising stars of British coaching, a former professional player and now head coach of one of the top academy programs in the UK. I'm pleased to welcome Coach Will Maynard.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Coach, is really, I'm always interested to talk to a coach, a young coach who has been involved in the game, has some background, but, is putting together, really an incredible project there at Charnwood. So, first of all, let's get, straight into it and find out about how you were introduced to the game of basketball and where you learned to play, who were some of your influences at a young age that possibly also had an impact in your coaching career as well, up to date.
Yeah, so I started playing in, I think it was year 5 or 6. I don't know if you know him, Dave Harris. Used to play for Leicester Riders back in the day. He's like
super famous.
Yeah, it's a big name in Leicester, and obviously he just randomly came one day to our school. We did like a primary school. It was every Friday after school. Me and just a couple of friends. Like none of my family played basketball. None of real my friends played basketball before that. So it was kind of just like it kind of just happened naturally in terms of getting into it on a Friday after school club. There was a couple of our mates and we just did that every single Friday. And then from there, we had like these little sessions on a Saturday mornings down at Fulhurst Community College in Leicester, and where we used to play, like Dave used to run it. We used to come there and play for 2 to 3 hours every Saturday morning. And then it kind of just moved on from there, really. He ran like the Young Heroes Basketball Club in Leicester. And there were some really, really talented players above me as well, like Tom Ward, obviously not from Worthing, but he played for us in the past. Josiah, Ramaya. There was a lot of really talented players, so we kind of just followed their footsteps really, and started playing National League at under 14s, I believe. And yeah, just kind of grew from there really.
And at its time, was there any time that you were actually going to watch like riders play when you started to get involved in the game of basketball, or were you just, you loved playing, that was it? You didn't really, know about some of the other levels and stuff?
No, we used to watch it. Obviously, if Russell Levis is watching this, don't tell him this. But me and a couple of our friends used to, down at John Sanford, we used to sneak around the back to get in. Like sometimes like half times, because it would be free from half time. I remember.
Yeah.
And we used to come and sneak around the back, and then even sometimes before the games, we used to sneak around the back. So I remember going to watch some of their games. I remember when Yorick Williams, before his second stint with the Riders, when he used to play there. I remember going to watch him. He was like he was my favorite player growing up. Right. That's the reason why I wore number 5 as a player and all that kind of stuff. Wow. So we were kind of exposed to it from early. And I remember every Saturday night we'd try and get down to John Sanford. We used to have our own little kind of student section kind of thing, but it's just like literally about 15 of us used to go down there and just watch the Riders every weekend.
So, Leicester, I mean, to a lot of, really the public should really understand this. There is a lot of history in the Leicester area. I mean, I'm going to miss out a lot of people here, but let's just say, the James brothers, Carl Brown, Dave Harris, all these type of people. And so, the access to the game, am I right in saying, would have been a little bit more easier than certain areas? Or there was, once you got involved, there was, there looked like there were quite a lot of, opportunities or aspects to be able to be involved in the game?
Yeah. So growing up, there was, it's crazy to think about it now that how many different teams there was in Leicester just growing up. So we have, obviously Dave Harris had his Young Heroes basketball stuff going on. Leicester Warriors, Carl Brown had all their stuff. And then also people forget about is Dave Greenaway was there for a long time as well. So he did a lot of they were called Leicester Cannons. So it was like three different teams really, all in the Leicester area. So, and especially my age group growing up, that we were super competitive as well. We were kind of like our team was like a little bit a bunch of misfits and all that kind of stuff. Like I was playing power forward at 6'2" and all that kind of stuff, but we were really competitive. For what we had. And then obviously Leicester Warriors were really competitive. I think they won the Final Fours one year. So I think if we all came together as one big Leicester unit, we would have been really, really, really good. I think obviously Rafael Thomas Edwards still playing now.
Yeah.
Elliot Sentence still playing now. A guy called Marcus Samuel Brown, Carl Brown's nephew. So there was a ton of Leicester players in that area, and like it was actually good for us to be a part, because those games we used to play against Warriors were super competitive, and it was kind of like a rivalry. We were all like good friends and stuff, but it was really good, like a environment to grow up around, being a part of those rivalries.
And then from, you know, your younger age experiences, what was the next stage? You know, you started to obviously take the game a little bit more seriously. How did that progress?
Yeah, so I think as I said, I started playing in year 5 or year 6, and it was just like one week after school on a Friday evening, and then started progressing more and more once I got to year 7. We actually had a coach called Gary Burton, who does a lot of the NSB stuff, who's there in Northampton now. He was a big influence on my coaching, on my basketball stuff. So he used to let us come in and shoot every lunchtime. We were in there every lunchtime. We'd have practice after school. And then it kind of, once we got to National League stuff with Dave Harris, we used to practice twice a week on a Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then it kind of got to like year 10 and 11. I thought I was making a little bit more progress than some of the other guys I had in my team, because I played a lot of sports when I was younger. I played squash, I played cricket, played rugby, and then kind of like year 8, year 9, I focused more and more on basketball. And then like year 10 and 11 is when I kind of realized I could be okay at this, you know what I mean? So I kind of really put all my focus on that. And then it was funny, really, it was the Burley camps up here at Charnwood, but it was run by Phil Gledall, Laterell Williams, obviously Russell was involved. And there was one summer camp where I came, and there was a lot of good players there, like Connor Washington came, Raphael Thomas said there was a lot of good players. And I was kind of like, I didn't really know anyone. I wasn't like one of the better guys there, but I came and I did really, really well. Like I like stood my ground and all that kind of stuff. And then a couple of weeks later, Phil, Russell, and Laterell Williams actually came to my house to try and get me to come to Charnwood College. But back then it was called Burley. So they tried to get me to come to Burley. I was originally going to go to Beecham with Dave Greenaway. So right. I made the move and I came to Loughborough to join Burley College in sixth form. So that's where it really, really got more serious for me, and that's where I really took it a lot more seriously.
Right. Okay. And then from there, so you know who would have coached you at college then, and then was that starting to, you know, resonate with you? You know, how you were being taught, or you were still just in pure player mode at that moment?
I was still in pure player mode, to be honest with you. I didn't really think, I always wanted to get into like teaching or coaching or something along those lines, but back then I was just so indulged in the game. Like I didn't really care about anything else. Like I was just all about basketball. So it's funny, Laterell Williams, former captain of the Leicester Riders, he was the academy coach back in the day. And also, I think it was the year after Rob was teaching in Birmingham, because I think Rob was doing a year in Birmingham where he was coaching the Riders and still teaching in Birmingham. So it was the year after when he was full-time at the Riders. So he would do like all our individual sessions up at Charnwood College. So I obviously had that amazing opportunity there. I think there was like 5 of us on the program. So it was the first year of DICE as well. So it was like on the ACE program back in the day. So yeah. He was doing all our individual kind of stuff, and LT was doing like our team-based stuff. And then I would also play I still did 1 year back in Leicester with Dave Harris. Before, in my first year, I did a year with Dave Harris. And then the year after, I moved actually to Loughborough Cardinals, where Dave Greenaway was my coach for 1 year. Right. So I kind of had it like the best of both worlds, because I wanted to play higher. So I think I started playing Division 3 in my second year of college, whereas before that I was just playing under 18s, under 16s. Right. And then obviously having the opportunity to practice with the Riders as well. I think I got a couple caps throughout my first 2 years with the Riders early on, because they used to practice at Charnwood every day. So I'd have a full day of school, and then sometimes I'd have academy training and then Riders on top. So it would be long days for me traveling to and from Loughborough and Leicester, but I loved every minute of it. And being around the pro guys as a 16-year-old was just like fascinating to me.
Awesome. And then you went to Loughborough to study. You know, how was that, you know, dovetailing with the playing? Obviously, you were right there at the start of this, incredible structure that Russell was starting, and Rob obviously was starting to put together. But you were actually in it there.
Yeah.
So talk to me about, the playing at the university, and, who coached you at university as well.
Yeah, so I actually took a year. I went to the States for 1 year
That's what I
after
thought.
high school. So I did go to States, but it just wasn't for me. The situation wasn't right. But yeah, we could talk about that another day. But so obviously I deferred because I did apply to Loughborough College as well. So I deferred my year while I took a year out and went to the States and whatnot. But when I first came back, they just appointed Drew Sullivan as the head coach. So he was doing the head coaching stuff alongside playing because he'd been there for a year already as well. So obviously having his knowledge and experience, as you know, like you've obviously coached him and all that kind of stuff, but just the way he thinks about the game and his mindset was insane. And then obviously with the Riders, that 2012, 2013 year was one of the best Riders teams in Riders history, I believe. You had the likes of Zaire, Jay Cousinard, Pavel Lozonsky, John Fraley, the big guy who got hurt, and then Anthony Rowe came in and replaced him, and then obviously Drew. Yeah. Jamel and Connor were there. So that experience and getting to practice with them day in, day out was something that you couldn't get anywhere else in the country at that point at the time. And I think I was 19 at the time, having that opportunity to practice with them every day, and then obviously get my minutes more with the Division 2 team back then was a really, really good experience.
And so from there, what was the process to, you were at university, still practicing, playing, at Division 2. What was the next stage? And you're still here, I'm assuming, not thinking coaching, but more just playing, like I want to be a player. Did you ever?
I was so like focused on the playing aspect, and I wanted to be a pro. I wanted to play for the BBL team, because obviously it was so hard to get minutes or any playing time on that team. So all I was worried about was, okay, I got to perform. I got to go to practice every single day. I'm just almost like basketball first, education second. I was just there for the basketball more than anything. Yeah. It's funny because I was actually doing a coaching degree because I did want to get into coaching. I almost knew I wanted to get into coaching at that time, but it wasn't like I want to put all my focus into coaching. It was just like, okay, yeah, I'm doing this because the basketball's here and the program's here, and I just want to be a part of the basketball program. So yeah, it was tough managing it all, and obviously doing the 2 practices a day and then a lot of games, but no, really good experience to be around some of those guys. But yeah, all my focus was just pretty much on basketball at that point. In my final year, actually, moving on to the coaching, I actually did some voluntary work with Josh Merrington, who was back then head coach of Charnwood at the time, because I knew I wanted to get into coaching, but I would obviously more playing, but the opportunity was there, and Russell said, okay, why don't you just go and do a couple of hours with Josh a week here and there? And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll go and do it to try and like broaden my horizons. So I was never like, I was an okay player, but I was never super athletic, or I wasn't. So I thought I need to have a backup plan if this coaching stuff doesn't really go to plan. If the playing stuff doesn't go to plan. So that's I got some experience under Josh, who helped me a lot as well down when I was in my final year at university.
And then you played at Surrey. How did that manifest itself, and talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so I was looking to go pro. I was looking straight after my 4 years. I thought I was good enough. I thought I could play in the BBR. I was quite confident at that stage. And yeah, obviously I started speaking. I spoke to a couple of BBL teams off the back of my head. I can't really remember, but I know Russell helped me as well. I went to a trial in Spain, in a little city there, and then Surrey came up with their general manager, spoke with Russell, and Russell was like, yeah, you need to give him a shot, you need to do all this. And then, yeah, spoke to Creon, had a couple of practices down there with Surrey, and then they kind of offered me, and I was just like, I didn't really know what to think, because I was like, I've been trying to do this for so long, and I want to have a professional contract and all that stuff. And I was like, oh wow, like this is actually real. I'm going to move there. So I was quite confident. I just moved down there straight away. I think I got my contract only a couple weeks before preseason started. So it was all kind of like a late process.
Right.
Obviously, they're trying to find like all the main guys and stuff, and I was kind of like the last piece of the puzzle, if that makes sense. And just it just kind of all happened super quick, and I was there for a couple of. Oops, sorry about that.
That's okay.
I was there with some real good players. Obviously, Teo was still there. Quincy Taylor, was there. So it was. I really enjoyed my experience there for sure.
And what? Anything you can talk about? Like, Creon is known as a players coach, so in some ways a little bit different to to Rob and like even Drew and those other guys. But talk to me a little bit about Creon and what were some of the things you picked up from him.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like, he is massively a players coach. Like, some of the stories he would tell is like he would take pay cuts so we could go and get food after the game, and he would like take us out. He would go around his house for meals. His wife would cook for all of us. If there was anything wrong, he would be the first one there to sort it out. But no, everyone who's played for Creon, everyone who does play for Creon, I'm sure they will all say that they love playing for him. But yeah, just his relationships with the players is it doesn't go unnoticed in terms of how the players feel about him, and he gets the players to like almost run through a brick wall for him.
Sure.
And you can see when they play super hard, they all love playing down there. But no, his player relationships is something that is quite admirable, really.
So, from this, around this time, were you still like in this kind of player mode, or did you start to think about how could I, make the transition? What do I need to do? Who do I need to speak to? That type of stuff. Or what were your thoughts about, going into coaching?
Not really, because I was still so much on the player side of things. Unfortunately, my time at Surrey got cut short, so I got kind of released. There was some off-court stuff, which was stupid, which I won't go into any details. But I kind of left, and I came back to the Riders, and I came back and started practicing with the Riders again. And obviously, they were again that year to come back to. It was like the Taylor King, Andy Thompson, Eric Robertson, Drew Sullivan. Like their team was loaded. So I came back and I was practicing, and I was just like, I didn't really not feel part of the team, but it was hard to come in like halfway through. So I was like, it kind of knocked my confidence back a little bit. So I was like, I don't really know if I want to do playing. So I kind of stopped completely. I stopped playing completely, wanted to get away from basketball for a little bit. So I actually started doing I was going to do my PGCE halfway through this. So I started doing like some teaching assistant stuff down at a school in Leicester near my parents' house. So I moved back into my house with my parents. So I was doing some teacher assistant stuff for 4 or 5 months. And I wanted to go into my PGC and kind of like not forget about basketball, but it was just like, okay, I don't really have many opportunities, or things didn't really go my way, or whatever happened. So I was kind of ready to take a break from it. And then really randomly, Russell called me up one day and he said, do you want a job at Charnwood? And it was all just like, wow, like I didn't really know what to expect. So I didn't really have time to think about coaching. I didn't really have time to think about what I want to do or how I want to coach. And I didn't really, obviously I've had a lot of experience from my personal thing of being around Rob, being around really good coaches, but it wasn't like, I didn't really go out and seek that coaching experience because it wasn't something that I was really pursuing, really. So yeah, it kind of all happened super quick. So I think he spoke to me, and then I started like a month later. I started in June, and Josh Merrington was still there at the time, but then Josh left in like August. So then I was all of a sudden like almost head of this program because Josh had left, and I'd never coached. I'd never coached a team before, never done a practice, didn't know how to do a practice plan. Like it all just happened so quick, and I really didn't have time to think about what I was doing. I kind of just not winged it, but I kind of just like got thrown into the deep end. I just had to think on my feet and just kind of move. And then the first year I was here, we had a Spanish guy come in and help us out, or he was like the head of the program and head coach of the EABL. But obviously I had a better understanding of how British programs worked and kind of how to manage people, how to manage the students, I had a really good understanding of what the program was, because I'd obviously been through the program. I'd been through Charnwood, been through Loughborough, and I played on the BBL team. So I kind of knew and understood everything. So I kind of managed like the runnings of the program, and where he was kind of like the head coach for the EABL team.
Sure.
But that was kind of like how my first year worked, really. And it was all just like, it was almost a blur how it all happened, and it all just happened so quickly. And yeah, it just
And
really got me coaching. And I was head coaching the under-18s team at the time. So he
right.
was coaching, the Spanish guy was coaching the Division 3 and the EABL team, and I was like assisting EABL and head coach under-18s.
Sure. And were you at this time, now you're thrust into this, it's kind of your first job. I'm assuming that, you felt some like, like this is actually, I really could enjoy doing this. I want to get better at this. Were you reaching out to other academy coaches, developing relationships with them, or were you speaking to Rob, or the Loughborough situation? How did that work straight at the start?
Yeah, so at the start, I wish I had spoke to more academies and how it worked back then. But obviously, being in a place like Leicester, you're kind of privileged to have such amazing coaches around you. It's almost not that you don't need to go and reach out, but I got so many coaches in the program already. So obviously, you've got Creon, who helped me a lot throughout the first year. He was head of the girls program. Obviously, the Spanish coach had coached in the ACV before and all that kind of stuff. Then you've got Rob, who's been obviously around the BBL for years. Mark Jarron was there. Matt Harbour was there my first year. So there was a ton of really good coaches. But I wish I spoke to more academies and how they do things at certain different academies. I wish I did that from an earlier stage, for sure.
Interesting. So is there anything that you're saying that you'd wish you'd done that, like at this stage? Did you have like anything that you were pinning your kind of coaching philosophy to? I want my players to play super hard defensively, we want to be this, or we want to be up tempo? Or were you taking stuff from Rob and the Riders, or from Kumesh? What were your early thoughts on like how you wanted to coach?
Yeah, so I always wanted my team to play fast, and I wanted to kind of like, obviously I was a big shooter back in the day, like when I used to play. So I wanted my team to have the confidence to be able to shoot the three. So I kind of installed that into them early, and I tried to install that into them early, and trying to have like just a real confidence about them to be able to play hard. And I wanted to play up tempo as well. So we ran the floor really well. We pushed the tempo really well. But yeah,
do you want your have you changed that, or this that's part of your philosophy now?
Yeah, no, I've not changed that. Any team I would ever coach, I want them to play quick, and I want them to play high tempo. Obviously, it's different because obviously coaching academies, you get different personnel in each year and whatnot.
Absolutely.
But
yeah.
You kind of have to try and develop the players into what you want, and trying to get them, install that confidence into them early. But no, it's not really changed. Just try to really develop that as best as we can, and finding ways to develop that, whether that's a 5-out space team, whether that's a 4-out one, in different ways you can get the best out of your players each year. But
so
no,
we always play. That was going to be. Sorry, Coach. That was going to be one of my questions. We'll talk a little bit. We're going to talk a lot about this whole structure that you have built and been such an important part of. But are you looking for players, or are you trying to develop players with like basically multi-skilled, that pretty much all of them can hit the free, even if you play 4 out 1 in? You still want pretty much everyone on the floor to be able to shoot? Is that something you would go with?
Yeah, 100%. Well, so I would try and develop everyone into becoming a shooter. I think obviously the way the game's changing now, and everyone's shooting a three, and you don't see that many people in the back to the basket game these days. But no, I try to develop everyone, especially at such a young age. I think it's, who am I to tell someone that they can't do this or they can't do that? Like, I think it's trying and develop their whole game as a whole, and give them that confidence. Obviously, you have to you have to do it in a way so they don't go crazy. So I don't want my 6'11" guy shooting 25 threes a game. Do you know what I mean? I think there's a way to go around it where you can say, okay, if you're in this position, you can shoot, or if you're in this position, by all means shoot. If you're wide open, 100% shoot it. Like, I think there's ways around it where you can kind of structure it into getting the right shots as well. Because obviously, when you do play up a high tempo and you want everyone to shoot the ball, there is, I think, one of the hardest things to manage is the shot selection, because they kind of get into a frenzy and they're like, okay, yeah, coach, give me the green light. I need to shoot. It's like, no, we still want to find the right shots, and finding the right shots in transition and finding the right shots out of sets is just as important as playing quick and up tempo. And I think it takes a while to develop that, but once they do get it and once it starts to click, I think they really do understand where, like, sharing the ball and playing quick and having 5 guys on the floor that are all an offensive threat is quite difficult to guard.
So let's take a minute to discuss about, this what I consider one of the most, complete structures, in the game in this country. This whole Riders organization, but specifically, obviously, your part. So you have Charnwood, you have Loughborough, you have the Riders professional team. Talk to me about how you link with those, with those other 2 parts of the system, and how much kind of like kind of like involvement is with each aspect.
Yeah. So how it works, I think the biggest thing that Russell has got is that, or the Riders have got, is that he gets the coaches to coach at all different levels. And I think that's one thing that I was fortunate for straight away. So I was assisting the BBL. Obviously, it's as a first time coach who had never coached a basketball game before, going straight into assistant coach role is kind of like, I'm lucky here. Like, I'm under Rob, I'm under Mark. Obviously, we had some other assistants there as well. So having that opportunity to see what Rob does on a day-to-day basis, and also how he manages games and how he does scout, how he does video, how the other assistants do video, and then developing that with my group as well. And obviously, Mark, the head coach of Loughborough, would do the same. He's the assistant coach for the Riders as well. So it's all kind of like interlinked. So we all kind of like help each other out in that sense.
Do you think that accelerated your, development as a coach, like absolutely in a much quicker way, or, just any thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. I think because when you're playing, you don't necessarily pick up on small things, and you don't really you're not that focused. But I think when you're actually in it and you want to be a coach, and then seeing what Rob does on a day-to-day basis and seeing what other coaches around the academy, you're like, okay, I'll take some of that. Or no, that probably won't work in my group. I won't use that. Or yeah, I need to definitely do that. So it's kind of just like having a big emphasis of actually learning from the other coaches around you and taking bits and bobs what you can kind of develop your own style and your own game into.
And one other, these are fascinating questions, and the reason why, of course, I would say Newcastle are somewhat there. I mean, Ian did have the academy; they've got the link with the university, and then obviously the Eagles. But you guys have done it at like such a high level in all 3 phases. Are you at times like driven because of the other parts of, so like Rob wins the BBL championship, you're like, we've got to try to win a championship, or, Loughborough being the success that they've had. Is it kind of self-perpetuating?
Definitely, for me anyway. Obviously, I'm super competitive, and it's almost like you don't want to be like the odd one out. If like, say like Riders win the treble, or Mark's winning Bucks 5 years in a row, it's like, oh no, I don't actually want to be the odd one out here. I need to go out and win and be competitive and try and do something big in that year. But no, definitely, I think it definitely does push you without almost you thinking about it really. Like, that's a good question. I've never really thought about that really, but thinking back on it now, you're like, yeah, actually, he's done so well this year. We need to go out there and win something, or we need to go out there and do something special. And obviously, the Charnwood program is a little bit different. In terms of development, we again, for me as well, it's almost not it's not about winning, and we say it's not about winning, but obviously who doesn't love to win? Like, but
sure, no.
Winning's kind of like a byproduct of what we do. But no, 100%, it motivates you to develop the players and get success when the rest of the program's doing really well.
Another question linked into that. Do you think, before we get on actually and talk about, what you guys do on a daily basis, but do you think that the players, both male and female, that you have at Charnwood, do you think they're also inspired? And do you also think that their ability to be able to watch and occasionally even be involved in some of the professional team practices, do you think that's accelerating their development as players?
Yeah, I think it is. I also think there's a thing with these young British players nowadays that kind of not take it for granted a little bit, but they're kind of just like, oh yeah, it's BBL, okay. Instead of like, actually, no, I want to make the BBL team this year. Like, we have one or two guys that are like, no, I really want to make the BBL team. I think it's all about the mindset of the player more than anything, in terms of how far they want to go. Because obviously we've got all the tools here and we've got the whole program that if a player does really want to be successful, they can do that. And what we've also tried to create is it's so competitive along the way. So obviously we've got BBL, we've got Division 1, we've got Division 2, we've got under 18s, we've got EABL. So there's kind of like, you're never going to be the best player in your practice.
No.
So that's what we always try and like say to the kids, like, don't coast, like try and be the best player in this practice, and the coaches will see that and the coach will push you up. So if you're the best player in under 18s, there's going to be opportunities to play Division 2. If you're the best player in Division 2, there's going to be opportunities for you to play Division 1. And it's kind of like a whole process of how it works. Obviously, it's super, super hard to get any minutes or any like real game time experience with the BBL team because they're so good. But we've got one player at the moment or two players at the moment who are with them like full time. So again, with this COVID stuff, it's actually helped because they don't have as much money to bring players in or whatever. We've got kind of less players on the roster this year. So it's actually given a really good opportunity for two of our young guys to be around that team every day, which again, I think has helped the whole environment for the other kids to see that and see them doing well. And they want to kind of have a part of it as well.
Sure. I mean, wouldn't you say, I'll come back to that. What about the relationship between all of the coaches? Do you meet on a regular basis as a group, or is it more you'll be sitting, you'll go to the practice, you'll be at Rob's practice, who I know has always been so open to anyone within his own organization, help him working, and then you're sitting there and the players are shooting and you're able to talk to him afterwards. Is that how it works, or
yeah? So we kind of have it's kind of like the three, it's me, Mark and Rob kind of have like an open relationship and open conversations about what kind of players are out there and what kind of players we're looking for and all that kind of stuff. So the more of the movement between the players and programs is between myself and Mark.
Sure.
So we've got guys who are practicing sometimes one week, maybe they're not the other, maybe they're playing one week, maybe not the other. So we have a good relationship in that sense, and we're kind of trying to push more and more of our, obviously me selfishly, I want to push more and more of my players up and for them to have the opportunity to play Division 1. But no, we do have some good conversations. We had obviously with COVID this year, we had a lot of conversations about who could possibly be the next player for the Riders and who should be playing up and who should have the opportunity to do that. So yeah, it's kind of like it's not necessarily, okay, it's Monday, we're going to meet at this time. It's more like, it's just like here and there when we're at practice, like you said, after a game or after a practice or whatever it may be. Or Rob may call me up one day and be like, hey, we need someone for practice today. Can you send someone across? It's not necessarily like a weekly meeting where we sit down and we discuss all our players.
Still, it's as close as anything like this that would be in the rest of Europe or some places in the world. It's as close as anything that gets to that kind of structure. Yeah. So super impressive.
I still think we've got a long way to go, and obviously there's still ways that we can really improve it, which we're all thinking about as well. So I think we are trying to move forwards. Obviously Russell's got some real real big ideas on what he wants the club to do. So it's still not perfect, and we're still trying to work on it. But no, it's definitely heading in the right direction.
Hold that thought about Russell. We'll talk to him at the end. Talk to me about two things. First of all, directly Charnwood. First, what's your philosophy with regards to recruiting young players? I'm right in thinking you do have accommodation and you do have the ability to get some players in from different parts of the country. So talk to me a little bit about recruiting.
Yeah, so in terms of recruiting, it's always a touchy subject at this age group, and people have their own thoughts on it. But no, we will go out and recruit players. In fact, a lot of the players actually email us. So in terms of like, if we run an open day, or we actually get a lot of people coming to us, and that's kind of how we select. I don't really necessarily go out and poach players or anything like that. I let them kind of make contact with me first. But we do actually have accommodation. We have it's called Field House. It's in like the middle of Loughborough. It's like within walking distance of Charnwood. It's got 19 beds for the boys, and then 15 beds for the girls. So there's a lot of opportunity for people to come from elsewhere from around the country. But yeah, it's just in terms of recruiting, we'll probably get them up on an open day or a visit, and we'll assess them and we'll watch some game tape, and then obviously we want the best players. We want to be competitive, but we want to also help develop the players as well. So whatever they need and what's best for them, we can kind of put them into their team straight away. So for example, it won't just be me necessarily recruiting for Charnwood. It might be Rob. He might have a conversation, for example, with the likes of like a Hosanna Kitenge, where he actually never played for Charnwood really, apart from EABL and under 18 and a little bit of under 18s, but he was brought straight in to practice with Division 1 men's team. So that kind of like wasn't my recruiting. It's kind of like, okay, yeah, here's what's best for you. You need to do this, but you can still play EABL on the Wednesdays and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's obviously we do want the best players, and we'll work to get the best players, but we are trying to build more of a relationship with our National Junior League program. We were getting more and more kids come through from our National Junior League program. So just trying to build that relationship there as well, and try and get more Leicester kind of base kids coming through as well.
Right. What describe like a typical kind of day, week? Obviously you have EABL on a Wednesday. You have something at the weekend, games at the weekend. What's the kind of typical day and week for Charnwood College?
I kind of go for like a full week. Obviously, it's all dependent on games and rest days and all that kind of stuff. But we normally go 14 practices a week, and that's every player would get that, whether you're under 18s, Division 2, Division 1, BBL, whatever. You always predominantly get 14 practices per week. And then we kind of schedule in around their school schedule. We get them to do individuals. So whether that's 1 or 2 or 3, up to 4 players really in an individual, and they'll get 2 to 3 of those per week as well, built in around their class schedule. And then on top of that, we got strength and conditioning as well. So they probably get three strength and conditioning sessions per week. It's been a little bit difficult this year because we normally have access to the strength and the power-based gym at Loughborough University, which is like world-class facilities. And again, for our young athletes to be around like the likes of Dillian White in there, some famous swimmers,
swimmers, absolutely, yeah.
In that kind of like elite environment is so good for them to be around. But they normally get 3 of those per week, and then obviously Wednesdays is game day, EABL, and then however many National League games we've got on the weekend as well. We also have some other stuff going on as well. So we've got like a sports psychology guy with us who's helping us out this year, and helped us out last year. He's doing some stuff if they need it, or video sessions. It all just depends on what games we have going on, what kind of week load we're on, and all that kind of stuff.
Just briefly, also talk about your, winning the national, the Academy League and the championships on that year, which was, I'm assuming is your first major trophy. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, we won it in my first year of coaching. with the under-18s. I won the National Cup. We beat Manchester, I think. Yeah, Manchester in the final in Manchester. So that was kind of like my first ever final I've been to. That was the first year coach. It was kind of like, I looked at halftime, we was up by like 15, 20 points. I was like, wow, this is crazy. But yeah, we won that. And then the year, was it year after? I think it was the year after. Yeah, my first year coaching the EABL, we won the EABL against Barking. And obviously I'm good friends with James as well. So I talked to him a little bit about that. But yeah, that was a crazy game. And obviously the talent we had that year was insane. The likes of Hosanna was a big time player for us, and
huge.
Niall Harris, actually going, like, obviously Dave Harris was my coach, and then I ended up coaching his son at the academy. So that was a crazy feeling. And obviously for the boys and the girls to do it on the same day was insane for the academy and the program.
Awesome. Talk very quickly just about your where you are now as a coach. Still very young, in charge of this incredible program. What are you trying to get better at? Where do you think you need to get better at, and what are you trying to do to help that along?
I don't think there's necessarily like one thing that I'm really focused on getting better at. I think it's just improving on a daily basis and picking up things from everywhere. I'm trying to hold my players more accountable and picking up like the smaller details in that sense. So holding players accountable for more like minute details. I think that's always a hard thing to do, and especially when there's a lot of stuff going on, and being able to see, okay, in a fast-paced game and a fast-paced practice, to see those smaller details and actually finding different ways of holding players accountable to do that. I think that's one thing I'm trying to work on. Again, just always having good relationships with the players. I'll take that from Rob, Creon. I always want to have really good relationships with my players. Obviously, it's a little bit different in an academy situation, an academy setting. But no, having good relationships, I'm always trying to work on that. But no, I don't think there's necessarily one thing that I'm really like, okay, I need to focus on this, I'm kind of like having like a broad mindset about it, and just thinking, okay, yeah, if I see something, okay, yeah, okay, I actually need to work on that, or I don't really need to work on that necessarily, or I need to do this, need to do that. I think it's just having like an open mind and thinking and trying to develop at all aspects of the game, really.
Sure. I mean, I'm fascinated by, and I don't think we really understand it well enough from the outside looking in about this whole structure. I keep coming back to it, but obviously, you've got the focal points of people like Rob, and I obviously know him, extremely well, and I know how he works and stuff. But you've even got people like Pablo, and like you say, Mark Jerome, and all of the coaches that have been through the program and are still there at this moment. It's got to be something that fuels your coaching further, quicker, just by being around these people at this moment.
100%. I think that's one thing that I don't necessarily, again, maybe we'll speak about this a little bit later, but I don't necessarily go out and read a load of articles and all that kind of stuff. I try and keep it from my own personal experience and getting to know people and speaking to people and how do they do things and all that kind of stuff. But even this year, we've got 3 new coaches just in the academy this year, all from Spain. They coached the highest level in Spain in the women's competition. They've coached Leb Silva, obviously having Pablo around, who's been in the Riders for 4 or 5 years now. Jesper Sundberg, who's head of the women's program, who's coached in Sweden, coaches the national team for the Swedish team as well. So I think it's just having all those people around you. There's so many things to pick up on a daily basis. Even when you're sitting there, you're watching them coach, you're watching a practice, and also having the opportunities to go and sit in a practice is like something that a lot of young coaches don't have. But no, it's a really good place to be around, and there's so many opportunities where you can actually pick things up and learn things and learn new things. And I'm always a guy that's trying to learn as much as I can. I'm open to learning. I'm not saying, so I'm still so, yeah, I've been coaching for, this is my 4th year, so I've hardly done anything so far. I'm not like saying, oh, I don't need to do this, don't need to do that. I'm still trying to learn on a day-to-day basis, and having the guys around you and having so many different voices and opinions around you is like so good to be around.
Last point then on this whole rider situation. I mean, I always felt that just taking the riders as a per se, it's obviously Rob is the person that gets the public glory, and so he should. But you know, you got this kind of triangle. You got Kevin, you got Rob, you got Russell. You know, talk about Russell. Really interesting, Russell Levinston we're talking about here. But you know, very interesting character. Someone that was involved in the early Lions programs. You know, came to Leicester roughly at the same time as Rob, and has put together this program. But you know, talk a little bit about what Russell does and how he's uniquely been able to put this program together.
Yeah, it's crazy what he's done. So obviously back when I think riders were about to go bust, I think, before he took over, and then just building it up step by step. So I think the Charnwood program was the first program other than the BBL that came in, and that's when Literal was coaching, and obviously Russell put that together when I was playing as well. But no, he is. I think the one thing that anyone will say about Russell, that he's super, super passionate, and he said that. He said he wants to create opportunities for British basketball players, and he's done that for so many different players, including myself. But that's one thing that you can't take away from Russell is his passion and his drive to make the club better on a day-to-day basis. The busiest man, the man who takes the most phone calls, it's crazy. Like you're in a car journey with him, and he's taking 45 phone calls. It's like, man, this guy's so busy. But it's not only just the riders as well. Obviously, he's on the board of BE now. He's been helping all throughout like this lockdown stuff with the Lynch Trophy. I think he genuinely just wants to help British basketball grow and help basketball players in England grow. And I think that's one thing that really comes across with him, just trying to help the young British players.
Awesome. You're a young coach, but you're at, you know, the highest level, you know, within that, then being involved with, you know, BBL and stuff. Talk to me though about the rest of British basketball coaching. You know, I talk about it being a fraternity, and if there is a fraternity, do you have, you know, good conversations with other coaches of your age range, at your level? Do you think that we should be doing more? Do you think there should be more interaction as coaches? What talk to me a little bit about British basketball coaching?
Yeah, so I think there is. I think a lot of coaches actually have pretty good relationships. I think one thing that's missing is someone to head it all up, because I think a lot of coaches will be willing to go in and speak and share their ideas, but I just don't think there's that one person that's really driving it forward. But I think, so when I first started, I didn't really have any contacts. I didn't know anyone. But obviously, I think one thing that does help is like tournaments like the Harris tournament, for example, where you're the night before the final and you're just chatting with all the coaches, and more like events like that actually helps. That's how I first met James and Craig, and that pretty much, well, that must have helped me get onto the GB set up with those guys as well. But just having those conversations, and then since playing more games and going to different academies and building up relationships with like Neil Hopkins, Matt Shaw, James, different coaches around the country, I think people are willing to speak with each other and share ideas. I think it's just having the opportunity to first build that relationship, whether that be a coaching clinic or whether that be a tournament, whether that be, I don't know, something over Zoom. But I think one thing that has been really, really good with lockdown and all this COVID stuff is that a lot of coaches, obviously Alan Keane has been doing a lot of coaching, I think he called it the hot seat, where a load of different coaches were on there. Some other ones that Neil had been doing with coaches on there. I think that's really, really helped. I think more coaches are willing to do these kind of things. And as you can see, the outcome with how many people are on these sessions and how many people are dialed in on a day-to-day basis, people are definitely willing to do it. It's just finding someone to drive that and which direction that goes in. would be beneficial for young coaches, I would say.
Any thoughts from you, briefly about what you think could be done to improve coaching in this country? Is it federation led? Is it British led? Well, what any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think a lot of things could be federation led. So again, bringing it back to the Spanish guy I've got here, who's my assistant. He's a phenomenal assistant, coaching Leb Silver and all that kind of stuff. But the amount of just courses he does on a day-to-day basis, it's not just a level 1, 2, and 3 and you're done. It's like, no, he's just finished the course and now he's starting a new one on something else. They're topping up every day. Like, and again, that's just a Spanish one. I'm not too sure what else they do in other parts of Europe or across the world, but just having the opportunity to do a course or do a clinic and whoever that's run by, I think a lot of people would actually take the time to do it. I would love to have something like that set up in England for me just to go and learn from. If it's okay, one night a week where I have to go on and log on to a Zoom and you get a qualification at the end of it. But again, when we were looking for new guys to come in, we focus a lot on like the Spanish kind of area, and just the amount of qualifications they have just from different coaching courses and whatnot is insane. And obviously you look at mine, I've got the level 1, 2, and 3, and that's almost about it really. There's not much else. Obviously you can go on and you can do your level 4 and you can do your what's that other one that James and Troy have just done, but it's like a
FECC.
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. There's obviously those things, but actually in England there's not much you can actually go and get qualifications from or learn from.
Potentially, it's a good point. I hadn't thought about this, but potentially, just because of maybe one of the byproducts of COVID is the fact that this online learning platform, could change the way that our coach education is delivered, and it could be more extensive. My worry, though, and it's the exact opposite to someone like yourself or Neil or James or any of the other, pretty high level academy guys, is that, to get better at coaching, you do actually have to be on the floor. So it can't just be theory based. You need to be there taking reps. It's like, I say this all the time. We as coaches demand our players work hard and keep working and keep putting reps in and get better in this area. And that's what we have to do, both on and off the floor. But it's not just an off the floor theory. It has to be on the floor, because you have to learn, well, that actually works for me, or I can deliver this in a better way. So interesting point there. Okay.
And again, sorry, just on that point, like going back to it as well, there's, like what you said, a lot of it comes from experience as well. And that's where I think, again, I've been lucky. I've not done much theory and I've not done much of that, but actually the experience I've had around a lot of the different players and coaches, that's really helped me. So again, you have to have the best of both worlds, and getting young British coaches on the floor more would definitely benefit.
I just want to ask quickly on this before I go to our last section. Do you think that the riders situation, that we should be, as a British federation, as a Basketball England, we should be shouting more about it? Or you just think that it is a unique situation just simply because those 3 phases are being able to be executed?
Yeah, I don't necessarily think that the federation has to shout about it. I don't think they really have to. Obviously, because we kind of started off with like all 3 phases, that like you mentioned, that I don't know, maybe some more exposure about how we do things, and maybe getting Russell on a call, or how he's done it, or how other BBL teams can actually have a full structure on how they do it, I think could be beneficial to other people around the country. But yeah, I think there are more and more teams actually that you can see having more and more of a pathway, but I think it's definitely improving. I think more and more clubs will make the jump and having different phases, if that makes sense.
Okay. End of game questions. 4 quick rapid fire questions. Favorite drill that you run, or it could be 1 or 2, but favorite drill.
Favorite drill 3v3 continuous. It's like a fast break drill where we just get up and down super quick.
Awesome. Favorite all-time basketball coach?
Dave Harris, my coach.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah,
good.
He's one of the best guys I know, and got so much respect for him. Yeah.
Awesome. Favorite player to coach? Always a tough one.
That is a tough one. Am I allowed more than one?
Of course you can. Yeah.
I'll go with Hosanna Kitenge. The energy he brings is insane, and just having him on your team is insane. He's so smart. Niall Harris, he was a phenomenal player to coach. He's so calm. He's like having, I don't know, as a coach, you've always got that one player who's where they're on the floor, it makes you feel so much more relaxed. And he was that guy for me. He was just like so comfortable when he was on the floor. And one more from this year, actually, Kanu Gudza. He is the hardest working kid I've ever seen. So them three.
Awesome stuff. And then lastly, do you have a go-to saying or statement? Do you say?
Honestly, I don't think I do. I don't think I have like I probably do without even thinking about it. But no, I don't think I've got a go-to saying or statement, unfortunately.
Okay. When I come back to you in 4 years' time, I'm pretty sure you will have.
Yeah,
we always find a way of eventually coming up with something, or you'll realize that you're saying it often. So that's great. Coach, I know that, you got a lot of stuff to do today. You're only at the start of your career. I mean, you've done an incredible job producing those players that I know we didn't talk much about, the ones that have gone abroad and already having some success at the professional level, trophy wise. And then obviously, I'm not sure which direction you're going to go, but I can only think it's going to be up. And I just want to thank you for being on this Time Out podcast, and wish you success for the rest of the season.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on. It was good.